What's up, guys? This is Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with the overall markets as we're getting a temporary bounce. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. So the news came out that President Trump had said that the 100% tariffs on China would be unsustainable, meaning that once again, he would likely try to negotiate a deal with China, and the 100% tariffs would just be a temporary thing for negotiations and such. That has been a good piece of news for the markets. Tesla also got some good bullish ratings, and we're seeing the share price bouncing. So we're doing well now. And could this be an inverse head and shoulders? It's always a possibility. But I just want to talk about a couple of things. So there's not really much data coming out for the rest of the day. It's all very quiet. And we have lots of option expirations. It's also OPEX. So that is why we're seeing a lot of chop in the markets. But for now, Tesla's holding up quite well. We've been trying to bounce. So I did mention we would see a temporary bounce on Tesla, but unless we break 440, we're not truly super bullish. So if Tesla loses 431, we could turn back down. But if we could hold above 440 heading into next week, there's a good chance Tesla tries to go higher for 450 or above, and we could be looking for a nice inverse head and shoulders setup or a better bounce. But first, we need to break and hold above 440. We're going to be watching to see if Tesla could do that. And overall, it does look like it might try to retest it. Looking at the 4-hour time frame, we're getting decent volume and holding up quite well. So watch 440 to see if Tesla could break that or not. To be very, very patient. SPY also has a temporary inverse head and shoulders. If we could break past 663.5, we could be going for 665 or above. And even if we do try to bounce, though, here's my warning. When you zoom out of SPY, we still have the head and shoulders like setup. So what this means is quite simply that there's a left shoulder, head, and right shoulder on SPY. Now we could try to bounce for 665 or above temporarily, and then we could be looking for a rejection again in case that fails us. So we're not officially bullish unless we break past 670. And we might be going a little bit higher on SPY, but keep in mind the head and shoulders is still there. Same thing with the QQQ. We also happen to have a left shoulder, a head, and a right shoulder. If we break 606, we could try to go for 608, but we have to take out 608 to be really bullish. We could try to push with the inverse head and shoulders temporarily, and then the head and shoulders could take us back down. So there's a large head and shoulders on the 4-hour, which still has a risk of downside. But what I meant about the inverse head and shoulders is that on the 5 minute time frame, the QQQ is bullish right now. So we might temporarily push for like 603, then maybe even 606 next week. But even if we push to 606, that does not invalidate this head and shoulders. We could just see a temporary bounce higher only to get a rejection again. So I'd still be very careful. On the Russell 2000, 245 could be tested, but then there is a gap to fill back down to 237, so it could still dip. ES could be pushing for essentially 6700 or even 6725. But as long as we're not above 6750, this head and shoulders is still valid. We could push a bit and then reject again. So I'm not 100% convinced we're completely bullish. We're temporarily bullish. We could go a little bit higher, but like I said before, the head and shoulders is still there. Same thing with NQ, it's still there. We could be going for 25,000. We'll see if we get a rejection or not. Bitcoin could be retesting 109,000. We'll see if we reject. Tesla needs to break and hold above 440 to remain more bullish. If we don't, there is a risk of us returning to 431 later on. Nvda has resistance at 184. It might be going for that resistance. Apple could be retesting 250. We need to break that to push more. But if we lose 249, we're turning back down. So we'll just have to see how it goes. On AMD, we have support at 228, and we'll see if we bounce. It might try to bounce off that back up to 235. Coinbase is trying to bounce here. Could be looking for 336 as we're trying to get a break from the falling wedge. Amazon could also be looking for essentially 216. Meta could be looking for 713.8. If that breaks, we're going for 720. Just for a temporary push. Google dumped, then bounced. So we're looking for an attempt for 255. Then Microsoft is looking for essentially 513 to 515. Finally, the VIX got a rejection, could be dipping lower back down towards 21.37 as the market is temporarily bullish, trying to go a little bit higher temporarily. Tesla could also try to go for 440. We're going to see if it could break it or not. But even if we do get to those levels, just be very, very careful with the current trend on Tesla. This could be a temporary trend shift, and we could slowly try to go for higher levels. But I want to see us break past 440. We're going to be watching for that. And SPY and the QQQ could be going higher by next week, but keep in mind the trend is still bearish and there is still a risk of us getting a big rejection with this head and shoulders. So I'm not 100% convinced that we're super bullish. It's more like we're just temporarily bouncing. So keep that in mind. Tesla also has earnings very, very soon, so be ready for that. I think next week we have earnings. So lots of catalysts are coming out, but for now, we're going to be watching to see if 440 breaks on Tesla or not. Anyways, that's it for this one. Thank you for listening and peace out.